How's it going today, everyone? Just going over a quick video today, hopefully a little bit shorter than the last two, on something that confuses a lot of beginning photographers, and that is your aperture or f-stop. So let me just clear off the table here a little bit while I talk and get into this. So the one of the things that confuses a lot of beginning photographers is the term aperture and f-stop. Now, it's used pretty much in any type of photography to explain certain aspects of the photo and to achieve certain results. So one of the things that you can do by controlling your aperture or your f-stop on your camera is get that nice shallow depth of field that everybody looks for, where your background's nice and bokeh blurred out and your subject is tack sharp. So the first thing we got to get into for it is what is the aperture and how do you control it on your camera and what do all the numbers mean. So for the first section of this video, I'm going to actually use a antique lens that I've got still kicking around from the very first manual film SLR that I owned, which is an old GAF. Took a lot of great photos on it until it rolled down a hill and hasn't worked ever since, but I keep it around just for keepsake. Okay, so on most of the cameras that you guys have, there's going to be a dial on the top that's going to say AV or A. That's how you control the aperture in your camera. Now, if you select that mode, your camera is going to do most of the other aspects on its own, and I'll get into depth in that in a later video. But I just want to go over some real basics today on the aperture and f-stop. So there's a lot of numbers. When you get into that, you're going to find f2.8, f3.5, f4, f8, f11, f22, and so on. So what those numbers actually mean is the amount of light that's going through your lens. So I'm going to use this little LED, and excuse me, it's going to get a little bright here for a second. So when we place the lens over top of it, you can see nice and clearly through it. Lots of light getting through at that point. So now if I turn the aperture ring on this lens, because it's a manual ring, I can start to choke it down. And we can go all the way down to almost nothing, almost a pinhole coming through there, and that's it. Okay, so that is a high number, but a slow setting. Okay, so that would be typical of what you'd find in like an f22 setting. Now, the opposite end of the spectrum, the wide open again, that is going to be typical of your faster speeds for your shutter or for your aperture and your lower numbers. So this one specifically is at f1.8. A lot of the kit lenses, such as this 18 to 55, which comes with a lot of the Canon lenses. This one is going to be starting at an f3.5. I'm not sure if you can see it in there or not. Let's see if we can get some light on there. So f3.5 to 5.6. Okay, and I'll explain why there's a range there as well. So what this does is it essentially gives you a choke down setting at the higher numbers, the less opening. What that's going to do is increase your shutter speed correspondingly to get the proper exposure. Longer shutter speed, you're going to gather more detail through there over a period of time. Where a faster shutter speed or a brighter lens set at say 1.8 or 2.8 is going to give you a really fast flash, which you're going to catch the detail that you've focused on, but a lot of the other detail is going to be blurred out. Now, to get that really nice bokeh effect, it also makes a difference on the quality of the lens. Some lenses have different shaped petals in there and different numbers of petals. So if you're looking for a really smooth, nice bokeh, you're going to look for a lens that has more petals and doesn't have as much of that octagon effect in there. So when you're adjusting it, it's more of just a round circular, and you'll get those nice smooth circle bokehs in the background. Okay, so just going over the difference between some of these lenses that I had set out here. So like I said, this is an old manual one. It's an f1.8. The nifty 50 millimeter Canon lens. Nikon has them. Most of the other companies have them as well. That's a 50 millimeter f1.8 as well, so very comparable to the older lens, just newer technology. So that's going to be a nice bright lens, able to get that nice bokeh. So the kit lens here, like I said, it's a zoom lens. It's an 18 to 55, and it's a 3.5 to 5.6 aperture. Canon's pancake lens, their most recent EFS, is 24 millimeters, and that's an f2.8. And my nature lens, which is a 100 to 400, that's an f4.5 to 5.6. So very usable focal length, but not the fastest lens out there by any means. Now, just to show you a couple things that can modify or change your f-stop that you want to be careful of. Here's Canon's teleconverter. It's a 1.4 converter. This will take your aperture down by 1 stop. So if you have a 2.8, that lens will turn into a 3.5. If you have a 3.5, it's going to turn into an f4, and so on. So you always go up 1 with this, which is going to darken it up a little bit. Not going to have as fast of shutter speeds, not be able to stop motion as much. So be careful of those guys, and they don't work on all lenses, so you really have to watch that. Now this guy, which is used for close-up photography, it's an extension tube, nothing in there, just hollow. It just spreads out the distance from where your lens is mounted to the body. This will not actually change your f-stop. Won't change how much light's gathered or any of that. So your settings will all be the same. The only thing this is going to do is change your minimum focusing distance on your lens. So if you're into macro photography, this is a great way of doing it and not having to sacrifice any of your settings. Okay, so why do the kit lenses and zoom lenses have a range on them? Move some of these out of the way. So, getting to the kit lens here. So, the way aperture is and f-stop is calculated, it's your focal length divided by the diameter of the pupil. So as you're going to a higher focal length, so from your 18 to 55, you're dividing the diameter of the pupil, whatever the measurement is across there, by the same thing. So you're not going to have as much light transmission at your higher end, so at 55, than you would at 18. Okay, so I hope that explains how f-stop is calculated. So since I want to keep this video fairly brief, I'll get into a whole video on using aperture control in your cameras and where to set it, how to set it, when to use it. One last thing, just as a note, so using a fast f-stop, so an f1.8, the main uses for that is to blur your background, great for portraits. Using a slower setting, so an f22, f11, f16, anywhere in there, that setting you would want to use if you want to capture as much of the area in focus as possible. So that would be great if you're photographing a larger group of people, or say if you're doing landscape or scenic photography.